Welcome into Here Comes the Sources Say / Sources Say that here comes a boom with a little whiff, little of Zoom action, maybe? Is that what we want to go with?
With? Ooh.
Oh, that's too on the nose, literally, with because it comes from your nose. Jack Pilgrim here with Zach Gagan and Jacob Polachek, ready to get down to business on the portal efforts of Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats, where news could be dropping literally as we're doing this show, and one that we've been waiting on for a long time. Unfortunately, trending in the wrong direction very, very quickly with Donnie Freeman, and the Syracuse transfer who visited Kentucky last week has been zeroed in as the go-to target at the 4 spot for Mark Pope in the Kentucky Wildcats. Multiple times throughout his recruitment, Jacob, it felt like Kentucky was not only the heavy favorite, but there was like a silent commitment, like it was done, and we were waiting for the announcement, and then as time drags on, we're waiting for the public announcement. It doesn't come, and then here we are sitting on Monday afternoon in St. John, sitting in the driver's seat for Donnie Freeman. So let's just kind of run through the timeline of events, Jacob. How did we get to this point, and is that your current expectation of where things will land for the potential first rounder that is Donnie Freeman of Syracuse?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I do think that St. John's is in the driver's seat for Donnie Freeman. And you're taking it back, it feels like Kentucky handled it. They set it up perfectly, where you have Donnie Freeman and Sebastian Rancik. You have Donnie, your number one target, visiting first. By all accounts, Kentucky put themselves in a very good spot with that visit, maybe even getting a verbal commitment, but not getting him signed. And you could leverage those two guys off of each other, saying, hey, we don't need to take you, Donnie, because we have Sebastian on campus. Hey, Sebastian, we don't need to take you because we have Donnie. And you have a little bit of leverage there. But then let it drag out a little bit. And then you had Sebastian Rancik commit yesterday to Florida State. That leverage is off the table. Kentucky goes all in on Donnie, but Donnie's camp starts reaching out to some other schools, have other schools reaching out. And that's when now St. John's is taking over that spot. And as we put in our intel piece, the money is very high in this recruitment, and St. John's has really positioned themselves late to land a commitment from Donnie Freeman.
So, Zach, just for background knowledge for our viewers, the intel that we'd heard on our end was that early in the visit, potentially even like first night of the visit, that Kentucky had locked up a verbal commitment from Donnie Freeman right when things got started. Loved the visit, loved the staff, had a really strong relationship with the staff, saw the vision, saw the fit, all of those things. And our understanding very early on that Kentucky's offer was by far, in a way, the highest, and it was competitive, and it was one that all parties involved thought, all right, yeah, this seems like a good fit. Leaves the visit, you don't hear anything public with Donnie. You go, okay, that's a little suspect. Then you start hearing the Alabama and UConn buzz that they're trying for a visit, that they're trying to see what the money would look like. Well, he may like, whatever the case was with the fit, with the playing style, the coaching staff, whatever. You start hearing those narratives start getting thrown around, but the visits never materialize, and I think everybody involved knew that the money was not going to be there for Alabama, UConn. They end up pivoting, going elsewhere, and then UK's left as the lone soldier for one of the top forward prospects in the country. You go, all right, well, when's the commitment happening? Friday night, we receive word that as the thing drags out quite a bit, that Tennessee and St. John's had decided to go, well, if Pope's not going to close on this thing, then why not throw our hats in the ring and see if we can make this happen? At the time, intel suggested that it wasn't totally serious, that they were going to try to make a move and see, but things were so far along with Kentucky that it just really didn't seem very likely. Saturday goes on. Don't hear much materializing with either the other schools. Kentucky's still there. Then Sunday morning, more intel continues to roll in that once again Kentucky feels like the likely choice, that Kentucky is expressing unbelievable confidence internally that Kentucky is going to be the choice, and they are waiting for the public announcement and signature saying that Donnie Freeman is a Kentucky Wildcat. As we get into Sunday night, you start hearing the buzz again that, well, hey, there's no commitment coming. they're kind of in a holding pattern, not knowing where to go with this. And St. John's is looming, Tennessee's looming, but St. John's significantly more, to the point where they put an offer on the table that beats Kentucky. And that's where we're sitting right now, where at what point do you walk away from the table and say, all right, there are other options that we like more, or do you just say, hey, when do you call the final line and say, all right, enough is enough. This is our final offer. We're walking away from the table and we're going to pursue other options. And we just never really got to that point. But Zach, here we stand, Monday at 4:18 p.m. And I think Trilly Donovan just put out a thing that said he's thinking that St. John's is going to be the pick. Won't put in a crystal ball for it, but that seems to be the case. So do you like how Kentucky handled this, assuming this goes the way we are right now? Do you like how Kentucky handled the Rancik news, and where would you go if you are in Mark Pope's shoes right now if this goes the way it's trending with Donnie going to St. John's? Is there a viable option elsewhere to make you feel, as a Kentucky fan, happy about how this all unfolded?
Wow. I mean, that's a lot of information. Kentucky's in a pickle is kind of what it seems like. Like Mark Pope or whoever is kind of running things over there in terms of the roster building has put themselves in a pretty odd, strange pickle where they've kind of gotten, like, just if all the reporting is true and we have no reason to believe it's not, then just feels like they're getting overpowered a little bit by the agent here, who's kind of flexing his worth and trying to pick the highest dollar. Like, it definitely seems like this is a money play for Donnie Freeman and his agent. When did Donnie initially visit? Was that Monday or Tuesday last week?
Tuesday through Thursday was his visit.
Tuesday through Thursday. So, you could maybe say that, maybe he's waiting to see on other commitments, see how that's all trending there. Then you get your two backcourt guys. And at that point, there's kind of no reason for him to kind of question what the roster is going to look like if you're Donnie. So it just seems like all of this is turning into a who can throw the most money at him thing. That just sucks because that's just what college basketball has turned into. And it's kind of working against Kentucky in multiple scenarios, it feels like, this portal cycle with the $22 million from last year and all that. So it's just it's frustrating to see how this is all kind of played out when Kentucky has been the front runner for so long. And then, Rick Pitino of all people can come in and kind of swoop in and be the one that steals him. But, if I had to put, like, 1-to-1, like, do you take Rancik when you can, or Rancik when you can? Do you just go ahead and pull the trigger on him and avoid this whole scenario, or you go with the guy that you kind of wanted from the jump, and Donnie Freeman? And now you find yourself in this situation where you didn't pick one or the other, or it seems like you did pick one, and you picked the guy who's now trying to shop himself around a little bit more. It wouldn't shock me if this all turns back around and Kentucky ends up landing him anyways. All you got to do is, so you're in a point right now where you kind of, if you want Donnie Freeman, and I think it's clear they want him, and there's probably not going to be a better forward option on the board, you're going to have to overpay for him. If you already weren't already going to overpay for him, a couple of days ago, you're probably going to have to overpay for him even more. And at this point, like, if you're a Kentucky fan, that's probably what you want, because you want Donnie Freeman. I don't know what the better options are going to be. Like, the kid from Auburn goes into the portal today, but he doesn't have the same pedigree as a Donnie Freeman. Is he a better fit? Who knows? But there's not going to be too many terrific options out there. Is it going to have to be an international route if ultimately Freeman goes to St. John's? Similar to how you went after Yelovich last season, is that kind of the play there? But you saw how all turned out. Like, Yelovich did not kind of perform up to expectations. So there's just a lot of risk going on right now. And it's just very, it's frustrating to see how it's all panned out. But because I don't really know what you do right now if you're Mark Pope. Like, you just kind of had to suck it up and just overpay for this kid because he is talented. He is a 5-star former recruit, McDonald's All-American, put up big numbers at Syracuse. Yes, the injury issues are probably real, and maybe that's what caused some of the hesitation. Maybe there was some closing table scenarios where they're like, well, hey, you've had all these injuries. Like, we got to take some of that into account as well. But it just feels like all the money talk is being used against Kentucky over the last week or so. And it's been very frustrating to watch how it's all unfolded, because I don't really know if you do ultimately miss on Donnie Freeman. Like, the portal closes tomorrow. How many are there even any better power forwards or forwards, 6'9", 6'8" guys in the portal that Kentucky can go after that would be better in a vacuum, at least, than Donnie Freeman? Probably not, unless a surprise guy goes in between now and whenever the portal closes. So your options are definitely getting limited. You're probably going to have to try and really overpay now to get this kid. And they need him. Like their roster, they have a lot of roster spots to fill still. We're going to talk about a couple of guys and like Justin McBride and Gabe Dines, who are more on Kentucky's radar now. They're going to have visits coming, but those are not even the caliber of talent or just pure skill and talent that Donnie Freeman is. So I don't really know what the next move is, if it's not to overpay for Donnie Freeman and just kind of say, look, man, we need you here. What's the money? We're just going to make it happen. We need you to sign and we need you to do it now. Otherwise, we're just kind of screwed. So that's kind of disappointing. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's a bad way to look at it, because I think Wilkins and Diallo is still going to be a very powerful backcourt that you can work with, and I'm sure they'll round out the pieces with depth pieces after that. But if you want to try and compete and win a national championship and go to a Final Four, you got to get guys like Donnie Freeman. You have to close on them. So the negative recruiting and the negative money talk around Kentucky it's just I think that's the bulk of the frustrations of the fan base right now, because they just need talent right now. You just need overwhelming talent. They just kind of don't have any in the front court at all right now.
Jacob, I think one of the more just you and I talk to NBA guys, opposing coaches that have coached, Donnie Freeman, people across the board, just gathering as much intel on this kid as possible, knowing that there was a, very still technically the door is open until he's signed on the dotted line elsewhere. That, all it takes is money, as we're learning very quickly. But the intel on Donnie hasn't been from day one overwhelmingly positive. Like, Kentucky identified Donnie Freeman as its number one power forward option from the very beginning. You have the connection with Mikael Miettinen coaching him on the Bahamian national team in that training camp and the build-up. So there's a deep bond and connection built up there. But if you just talk to other people in the basketball world, I had people reaching out to me that said, I have no idea what Kentucky is doing recruiting this kid and pouring as many resources and that much time and investing in him as the number one guy when there are obvious pro tools. There's a chance that if he stays healthy and goes in looking with a chip on his shoulder, looking to make a statement next season, he can be a lottery pick. Like, he has that level of talent, but there are motor issues. There are times that other coaches have said, does he really impact winning the way somebody that you are paying as much money as you're going to have to pay him would suggest? A lot of those guys other people going, I like the kid. I want to believe in the kid. Kind of, it feels like a similar conversation, Jacob, is Brandon Garrison. We all love Brandon Garrison, but does he truly impact winning at the highest level? Depends on which day and what central time. If you're
who the opponent is,
central time zone, or if you're playing Oklahoma, or what's going to be Kentucky next season. A weird dynamic where the conversation, it's a very nuanced deal talking about Brandon Garrison. I feel like it's the exact same way with Donnie, and that's not even considering that he hasn't played more than 23 games in either of his 2 seasons as a former 5-star top 10 recruit. So it was a really touchy, tricky situation for Pope to get into with Donnie and say, that's my guy. He's obviously the go-to game changer that we need. If you're going to be willing to let Mo Diabate and Andrea Jelovic go to the portal, you better have an obvious clear-cut upgrade at that position to say, hey, I'm going to invest heavily in this spot because I believe in him. So they chose that through all the intel, through all the injury concerns, all of it, they said Donnie is our guy. And I think that's where you get in such a pickle, as Zach said, where do you turn from here if you did identify him as your guy and you don't land him? Because now you're going same conversation as we did last year with your options B, C, D, and then how do you pitch that to the fan base in a make or break year 3-4 Mark Pope to say this is definitely a vote of confidence that this team is going to be capable of going to a Final Four? Is there an option available? Do you believe in Justin McBride to be that guy at the 4? Do you have to go now throw $6 million at Milan Momcilovic to say, hey, pull your name out of the draft. You're only going to be a second-round pick. Come be a part of this. Alan Graves, do you have the exact same conversation with Alan Graves and say, $6 million. Tyron Stokes is off the table. We're taking your money and throwing it at the 4. What do you do? But it does feel like the next move has to be a massive domino for Mark Pope. Yeah,
there's a lot to touch on there. Talking about Donnie, like you said, the intel is one thing, but you know that intel, if you're a good program, before he even hits the portal. And you know that intel before you decide to pursue. And talking to people around Donnie, it's like, as far as talent goes, he is one of the most talented guys out there. He can wake up and average close to a double-double, and he's now getting to the healthiest he's ever been. And there's a lot of talk about the money, going up on the money and things like that. But as far as the market goes currently, he is a guy that's going to demand a big paycheck in the portal, and I think rightfully so. So he could be a guy that's getting more than $3 million in the portal, but he could very well be worth it. But let's say that they miss on Donnie, like it seems to be trending. McBride is the next reasonable pivot there. He's obviously visiting later this week. I think he's a guy that would be a quality addition to Kentucky, but I really don't know what if he could be the starting for a title contending team. And I think the drop off between Donnie Freeman and Justin McBride is pretty significant.
Is there any chance, Zach, that you could go land a Milan Momcilovic or an Alan Graves? Because I mean, those are the only two. If you talked about who else do you go? Is there a clear talent upgrade from Donnie Freeman? There's not, outside of the super unrealistic options that are Alan Graves and Milan. But hey, money is king, and if the draft grades aren't what they hope, then why not?
Yeah, all it takes is money, So if Kentucky has plenty of it, which we have no reason to believe they don't, then yes, you can absolutely throw your hat in the ring for a Milan, which I think that should be priority number 1, 2, 6, all the way down to 100. Like, you do whatever you can to try and get Milan Momcilovic if there's even a chance he can come back to college. Maybe Alan Graves like a tier below that. But yes, like those are potential down the road guys, though. Like, I don't even know what the NBA draft schedule is right now, but it's going to be a while before those guys can actually, will actually pull their names out and stuff. And so you'd have to wait a little bit on them. But, Justin McBride, I don't think is a terrible, he's a pretty good player.
Solid. Yeah.
He's a very solid player, but, is he the starting 4 on a team that's going to make the Elite 8? Probably not. Gabe Dines is just a very interesting project because he's 7'5" and actually moves pretty well for how big he is. I don't know if you want to talk about that. Yeah, well, there's some McBride stats right there. Like, he's actually strange, very, very efficient. Last year with James Madison, he has more turnovers than assists last season as well. As kind of a guy that's supposed to be sort of a playmaker. So that was a little bit concerning. The defensive numbers were not good at all, but stretchable guy who can knock down some shots. So you could see him potentially being at least a fit in a Mark Pope offense. Gabe Dines, I'm not even sure. He's just 7'5" and blocks shots and dunks everything. So he would definitely be obviously a depth piece behind someone like Malachi and over Reese Potter. But I don't really know what your other options are. I mean, I'm sure there will be new guys, new names that pop up, like you see in Gabe Dines' stats right there. His 2 years at Youngstown State, he led the Horizon League in blocks. His freshman year, he led the league in blocks, and he only played 14 minutes a game. So the guy actually, he has some chops when he gets out there, but not someone you're going to rely on to play a bunch of minutes and be super productive. So, but yes, other than those two, I'm sure a couple more names might pop up. You got Devin Williams down there, but he's not a starting caliber guy that you would try and rely on to be there. You'd probably, if you miss on Donnie, you probably have to hope that you can get one of these NBA guys to try and return, or just fill everything out with multiple depth pieces. So where you're playing the starting 4 spot just plays, it's a rotation of 2 or 3 different guys. And then you can hope that the production from all of them kind of adds up to what you're looking for. So it is just kind of a tricky scenario, tricky situation. We did just see some news about, I think that's where Jacob just went.
Washington State's own, Lexington's own, but by way of Washington
I think that's
State,
where Jacob went, was to go talk
Jerome,
to him.
Yeah, he is currently on the phone with him right now. Jerome Morton, entering the transfer, not only entering the transfer portal, but returning to Lexington for a visit on Friday. Your thoughts? You've seen him play quite a bit, GRC's own. Yes,
I watched him play George Rogers Clark for at least his entire senior. I think he was with the whole COVID thing, he was technically a 5th-year senior, so he was an older senior, but he was on that GRC team that won the title, and I think it was 2022. that won the state championship. And he was a solid player, like just a very reliable, like ball handler type guy. He's not a forward. Like he's like a 6'4", 6'5" guard. I believe he started at Morehead State and then moved his way over to Washington State. So I haven't seen like what he's been doing since then. But I remember him just being like a very productive, effective player at the high school level. He would obviously be someone that you'd kind of fill out in your backcourt as like a depth piece. I don't really have any super overwhelming takes on that. I just remember him being a very solid, steady player, not like super flashy or, overwhelming talent, but definitely someone you could rely on to take care of the ball, get into the paint. I'm looking at his stats right now. He's
38% three-point shooter
this past season. So a guy that can come in and hopefully help not have too much of a drop-off. So that'll be interesting if he's visiting on Friday, according to Travis Branham, 24/7 Sports. Jacob will even come back by the time we're done here, and he'll be able to give us some of the lowdown on whatever he just talked to with Jerome there. But yeah, that's a Winchester kid, a Lexington kid. So that would be, if you're missed out on Jasper Johnson, Jerome Morton's a left-handed guard who's about 6'4", 6'5" from the area. So let's just, run it back with a different version of, maybe a less flashy, but maybe a little bit more experienced version of Jasper Johnson. I feel like that's probably maybe the play they're looking at there. But back to the front court, there's just, you're kind of running out of options. So it's just going to be interesting to see. I'm sure another name will pop in the portal between now and then. We'll see who it ends up being and if it's someone that Kentucky is seriously going after. I'm interested to see if they'll end up going after this Auburn kid, Sebastian Adams, I think is his name, or Adams Williams. It's a hyphenated name. We love some hyphenated names here at Kentucky. So
we do.
We'll see. There's just not much time to do to fill out a lot of a roster, it feels like.
There were some people in the comments asking about Paul McNeil from NC State, and he was a name that popped up very early for Kentucky. I'd heard that there was a good chance he was going to follow Will Wade to LSU or return to NC State, and it does feel like things are, he listened and mulled some different options, but it money offers especially, but it does sound like a return to play for none other than Alvin Brooks III at NC State is very likely on the table, so that takes out probably the best three-point shooter in the portal. I think no matter how this goes, you got to add shooting. Like that's a top priority, and probably should be more heavily invested in right now. Like I'm actually surprised that Jerome Morton is the very first kind of quote-unquote shooter that we have heard of on Kentucky's radar to add to the depth and join the bench potentially as a sniper option. So anybody else pop out at you in the backcourt? We haven't gotten a chance since the commitments to talk about Zoom and Alex Wilkins and their match. I'm a big fan of Alex Wilkins, but still shooting, leaving something to be desired there. Anybody else jump out at you that could fill that void?
Well, where's the holding pattern at with Jalen Cox? I know he had his visit postponed due to personal reasons. Do we know what the situation is with him still at all, or?
So Jalen Cox, my understanding is, went into the process, wanting to be a starter, but like if a blue blood came calling and said, "Hey, you're our backup point guard," he would say, "Yeah, I can ball with that." And then as the portal picked up and the options picked up and the money picked up, it was like, I remember when he cleared the $1 million mark with some of these options coming in, it's kind of like, okay, this kid's definitely not going to go somewhere to be a backup option, like a bench guy. At minimum, he might have to be the co-star alongside Zoom Diallo or something to that effect. And then the more I talked to a bunch of other schools that were recruiting him, and they were like, dude, his money's up to like 2.25, pushing that. And Jacob, you're back. Gosh, that scared the crap out of me. But long story short, Jalen Cox played himself out of backup role at Kentucky as the one of those types of options at the shooting spot. So I'm going to go ahead and lightly erase him from the option list. But I guess depends on how desperate Pope gets to again, money always wins and stuff like this. Our resident on-field reporter, did you get in touch with him?
Yeah, I talked to Jerome Morton's dad.
There you go. How'd that go?
It was great. I mean, they love Kentucky, man. They really love Kentucky. We're going to have a story on KSR Plus with some quotes. They've been talking to Kentucky for about a week now, and they got this visit set up for Friday. So, I mean, I cannot stress how many times he said, like, we love Kentucky. So that I'm excited.
A year in Washington State will probably miss home pretty quickly, I'd imagine.
Wow. Zach doesn't like the state of Washington. I don't know.
I love the state
playing
of
for Washington State in general. What are they? They're in I think they're in Gonzaga's conference now. They won 12 games last year. I'm sure he's ready to get the hell out of there. So I don't blame him.
think for all the people watching this in Washington, I support you.
Where's Washington State? What city is that college located in?
Washington State is on the West Coast.
Oh,
okay. That's not what I asked.
Any other intel? Anything you could drop from that outside of I like Kentucky?
He mentioned Louisville's poking around there. It feels like every in-state kid, it's Louisville and Kentucky. I think he said George Madison, so I couldn't tell if he was talking about James Madison or George Mason. So one of those schools is
George Washington, even.
Yes, Captain Crash, 1,000% Paycheck. I can call him Paycheck for the rest. I can change his name in my phone to Paycheck. I really don't care.
I like Polecat better, actually.
But if he signs up for KSR Plus, I don't care what. I can call Jacob anything I want to. Paycheck can be Paycheck. So yes, if you subscribe and show me proof that you have subscribed, I'm 1,000.
Crash hasn't subscribed yet. What is this? He's on every show. He hasn't.
Kind of fake. I'm not gonna lie. Kind of fake.
Steven, stop showing his comments on the show until he subscribes. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Zach, there are some people asking about Mikael Miettinen.
Blast from the past, that name.
Blast from the past. And
story came out about him today.
And Jacob, yeah, you want to get Zach's take first, and then you follow up with yours based on you reading that article. But
I haven't read this article. I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Yeah, Jacob, start with the article first, and then I want to get your take, Zach, on your take on whether Kentucky should pursue that one.
I mean, it was a pretty deep dive into kind of the maturity questions that that surround Mika right now, and these have been questions that have been circulating among basketball circles, but nobody's really been confident enough to say it on record. And I've actually been talking with the writer of the article, and he said, like, people domestically in the United States were pretty hesitant to talk about those maturity questions, but people overseas have been a little bit more willing to speak on record about some of these maturity questions. And in the story, he points to an interview that Mika did with the media where he refused to answer questions in English. He was only speaking in Finnish.
That was so weird.
And so just little things like that. And there's a lot to unpack in this story. But it really questions a lot of maturity that he had. And I think that was a big reason why there was all this talk about him reclassifying into the 2025 class. And I think that it scared away a few schools from really pushing to get him in the 25 class and forcing him to stay 26.
Now, knowing that, Zach, that he's probably, if you're looking for talent, that isn't Milan Momcilovic or Alan Graves, who could keep their names in the draft, and if they don't, they will fetch $6+ million. You could get him not cheap, but for, call it 3. Let's call it two or 3, and to close on an unbelievably talented kid who has a lot of character / maturity questions that are now being highly publicized. And who wrote that article, Jacob? What was the source of the article?
Sam Yetz with Hoops Hype, who does a very good job over there.
So it's an option, but it is a one with a little bit of baggage.
Yeah, I remember a few months ago, it feels like it was now, reading some quotes from, I think it was his own head coach overseas at the time, who was basically like, man, this kid is going to be good, but he just does not have his head on right now, talking about Mika. So even then I was kind of already like, at that point I was kind of out on him, because if you're going to have all these massive maturity concerns and personality concerns, like, you need to be as good as Tyron Stokes to kind of overcome some of that stuff. And Mika Miettinen is not. He's really good for I think he's like 6. He might even be 7 feet tall, hell, at this point. But like, really,
he actually did come in at 7 foot at the Hoop Summit. Yep.
Yeah. So like, really, really skilled and talented for a 7-footer. Like, easily can be an NBA lottery pick whenever he kind of gets his head together. But I think that's just the last thing that Mark Pope needs right now, is like, if you're going to go after a guy who has some concerns about stuff like that, you go after Tyron Stokes. You go after the guy that is like the surefire number one kid in the class, not like a guy who I think Mika's like in the 10, 15 range. Like I'm sure he's still really talented, but this is not exactly the deepest class in the world. So there's probably a reason that he's still uncommitted and, there's not really any rumors or reports going on about did they say anything in that article, Jacob, about some of the schools that are talking with him at all? Or was that even brought up at all?
I think it was mentioned, but it wasn't a main highlight of the story. Let me pull this back.
North Carolina has popped up as one of the, rumored
Mike Malone, man.
destination
If anyone knows how to coach some Europeans, it's Michael Malone. He's been pretty good at it over the last decade.
And
Arkansas
is a UNC alum, so she played, I think, women's basketball at UNC, so there's a connection there.
Yeah, Arkansas is in the mix, and Michigan has, kind of loosely poked around, but I doubt that one comes to fruition.
No schools mentioned in the story.
No school.
Yeah.
So
that's probably one if you're Pope, you just probably avoid. Just like that is like a very last. That's a last resort that you just hope you never get to.
Well, you need a 3 and a 4. Just get Stokes and Mika and play them together.
Sure. Yeah.
Talk about high risk.
They need a lot of spots. Yeah. They need like 5 more players. So.
All right. Well, let's do this. The panic meter. Steven wanted to play this little game. I don't know if he has graphics made for it or whatever, but where we stand right now in the offseason, where you have impressive commits objectively in Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins. Love both of those additions. Love how they fit. I know there are some people that disagree with their fit, but I do think that they are wrong. I really, really do like their fit. I think Alex Wilkins could be a first-round pick next season. Their Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comparisons, I think that's a little aggressive, but I am a massive fan, and I think he does have breakout superstar potential at Kentucky. And Zoom Diallo, I think, has a really, really high floor. I think at absolute bare minimum, he's going to produce and be massively effective at Kentucky. So I like those two. Obviously, Cam Williams, love his return. Malachi Moreno, love his return. Believe he can be another, first round pick next season as well. But beyond that, massive concerns across the board about basically every other position, about depth, about shooting. Go down the list. So those things, the good, the bad, and the ugly of this, Zach. Where is your panic level meter right now, sitting here at 444 on April 20th?
Well, I'm going to say a 6, and I think most of it is just on the whole Donnie Freeman situation, because I just feel like it's just gone about as terribly as could have possibly asked if you're Kentucky's side. So most of my concern or whatever panic level is related around that, because I think if you do end up missing on Donnie Freeman, then look at that cute little graphic.
There we go. I like that.
That's nice. So yeah, it's a little bit concerning. But in terms of I think Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins are going to be awesome. I think they're going to legitimately be really, really good, really, really fun. 2 guys that can win you a lot of games. I don't have concerns about how they'll play together. I think that's the most low-hanging fruit. It makes me rethink some of these national media, like how I view them when they say stuff like that. Because I'm like, come on, let's at least do a little bit more rationale stuff. And guess who thinks that Alex Wilkins is actually really good playing off ball? Dane Hurley and Solo Ball both think that, and respectfully, I tend to agree with what they say as the people that have been in the war room watching film and all that, more than whatever the national folks are saying. So no concerns about that at all. I mean, Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo are really just they're awesome. I don't know if either of them will be able to match the production that Otega Owe had, just because of how good he was at just putting up buckets of points. But in terms of overall offensive talent, I don't think it's even close that Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins is a better backcourt duo than Denzel Aberdeen and Otega Owe. And that was always my big thing coming into this season, or this offseason, was you've got to get 2 guys that are better than Otega and Denzel Aberdeen from just a pure talent, especially on the offensive side point. I think both of those guys are. In particular, Alex Wilkins, who I think is awesome. And honestly, I've seen more. I don't think either of them play like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at all, to be perfectly honest. But I think Zoom is more similar to him than Alex Wilkins in terms of being able to get in the lane and decelerate and do stuff like that Shai's really good at, and kind of using his body to work his way around and through guys. I think there's a little bit more comparison there. I don't think either of them are even remotely close to whatever Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is. He's about to win MVP again. But so a big fan of those two. I think having Malachi and Cam is awesome. But I'm just my panic meter is at a 6 because I just have no idea what the situation of that 4 spot is. And the 4 spot is pretty important for Mark Pope offense. Like, you need a guy that can come in and shoot. So we'll see exactly how that happens. Oh, and I'm seeing a women's basketball player just went to the portal, Josie Gilvin. I thought she ran out of eligibility, but whatever. So
I just saw Vince Iwuchukwu just entered the portal as well. I think everybody with a pulse is now entering the transfer portal, whether you have been playing for 7 years or 2 years. So whatever. At this point,
I'm a 6.
Jacob, your panic meter level as of today at this time.
I believe I said 7, and I'm sticking with that. I'll start by saying, like, I think that landing Tyron Stokes changes the whole complexion of the roster, and so much of my lack of confidence in Kentucky to finish that recruitment is baking into that 7 out of 10 panic meter. I think that without Tyron, I think Zoom is a really good player. I think Alex Wilkins is really good, and I think that Malachi can be really good next year. I like Cam Williams, but I think that if you roll out a starting 5 with Zoom, Wilkins, Cam Williams, I don't know who they're going to get at the 4 now, maybe Justin McBride, and then Malachi. That's not really a national title contending roster. I think if Tyron is in that fold, it's a whole different story. So I just have concerns about this being a national title contending roster. So that's where my 7 out of 10 comes from. If you're asking me, am I panicked about it being a pretty competent roster? I think it'll be a good roster, but Kentucky Standard is a national title contender, and my panic meter is pretty high as far as that goes.
Yeah. I think Alex Wilkins, I love his pace and patience and the poise. Like, yes, the shot selection can be problematic at times. Yes, the efficiency isn't where you'd like it to be. But again, when you have such gravity as at the mid-major level where you're a dude and everybody in the conference knows that you're a dude, of course it's going to lead to, like, I don't want to, like, Jalen Lowe kind of had the same reputation for taking bad shots and the efficiency and, well, what happens when you put talent around him? But I think he was such a where Alex Wilkins came from with the offers and the interest that he had coming out, where he was basically, that was the best that he was going to get, Furman. And he just skyrocketed into superstardom that you just kind of gotta just navigate. Matt had that stat where some of the recent All-Americans, where they came from, like, he fits the mold of those guys. And I think Pope deserves a ton of credit for identifying Alex Wilkins as his number 1 option once the Colin Chandler thing unfolded, and he left as the top 2 option. Alex Wilkins was number 1 on Kentucky's big board and landed him. I think he deserves a ton of credit for fighting off some of these other programs. That was an ace. Zoom Diallo, was he option 1A, 1B for Pope with Rob Wright? He was one of the top guys that Pope said, I'm comfortable landing him as our starting point guard. Rob Wright was the bigger priority, but I won't hold it against him for missing on Rob Wright and immediately pivoting for Zoom Diallo. They identified him as a guy that was totally capable. And I think that plays into my panic meter level, where you could say both of those 2 guys were top priorities that they identified early and said they are championship caliber guys. I trust that evaluation in that regard, and they landed both. Donnie also fits that mold, depending on how the next couple hours go, minutes go, however this unfolds. He also fits that mold. And if Pope is somehow able to pull the rabbit out of the hat with that one, then you could say all 3 of the star caliber guys that they've identified in the portal were their top options, one of their top 2 options. And then you do have to kind of say, okay, well, Tyron Stokes was one of those guys as well, and that one's not over until it's officially final over, and we know Tyron's recruitment can change based on how he sleeps one night and wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and says, yep, I'm just not feeling how I was feeling the night before. So I do think that Pope deserves some grace until we do see this all come together, and I do think some of the panic that we feel as a fan base is the what ifs of, hey, if this goes the way it seems to be trending, then man, I'm going to feel this way. We should wait until the moves actually happen and the dominoes do, because there is public negotiation, as we saw with Rob Wright. There is very public negotiations right now with Donnie, and that's something to absolutely keep in mind until he is signed, sealed, and delivered for another school. So I do think that as of right now, my panic level is at 6, but I do think some of that has to do with the what ifs, and I probably should be giving Pope more of the benefit of the doubt until they actually go the wrong direction. And we do see, where Pope goes from here. If he can't land a Milan, if he can't land an Alan Grays, if he doesn't go after a Mika or land a Tyron or whatever the case is, then we can go into the offseason and go, man, I'm not feeling too good about this make or break year 3 for Mark Pope. So I'm cautiously concerned, but he definitely has a way out for me to feel that this team can go win a national championship. But we will see from there. Any other news?
Go watch that. Everyone should go watch the first half of that UConn Furman NCAA tournament game. It's on YouTube, and you will see Alex Wilkins look like the best player on the floor. Not even close. Like, does things offensively that no one on last season's team could even think about trying to do. Like, just a very confident, well-rounded. Had a couple of mistakes, but can whip like full, like cross-court passes. Go behind the legs in traffic, score over bigger guys. Like, he had 1 3 that was deep NBA range. I mean, just an absolute menace in that first half. They kind of keyed in on him a little bit in that second half. UConn did, but you put more talent around Alex Wilkins, and you have no reason to believe that he's not going to be a star. So I do think people should get excited about him and Diallo together, because I think that's going to be a really fun pairing that's going to work well. And regardless of how everything else goes with the roster, those two alone should have, as a fan of basketball, those two are going to make some fun basketball at Rupp Arena. So I'm excited from that perspective, at least. Like, if you're judging my panic meter on the backcourt, put it at a 0, because I think it's perfectly fine how it is.
Yeah, I totally agree. Jacob, before we start wrapping this thing up, any other news that we need to be aware of? Anything that you are eyeing? I know this McBride visit is one that you're keeping a very close eye on. Anything else coming down the pike, rounding third, that we should be aware of?
Subscribe to KSR Plus. I'm going to have an interview with Jerome Martin's dad very soon, so go look for that.
All right.
Subscribe. Don't listen to them laughing. I want you to go. It's not a joke. This is not a joke. I need you to go subscribe right now. Don't listen to them laughing. It's not a joke.
You're out of your mind. NBA playoffs, Zach. How are you feeling about your Cleveland Cavaliers right now?
Oh, they just waxed the floor with the Raptors the other day. We're actually going to go watch them play. Hopefully the bar I go to has Peacock and NBC. Hopefully they realize that NBA playoff games are on 1,000 different channels. So I'm going to go watch that tonight. But yeah, yesterday's games were kind of poopy. Saturday's games were a lot of fun, though. So watching Wemby yesterday was really fun. If no one's watching the Spurs, they got their whole floor that looks cool. They got the color-coded fan arenas set up. Wemby's out there playing well. Fox is playing well. They're a lot of fun. So Jacob's telling me I cursed. I don't remember saying that first word, Jacob. I definitely said poopy, though. But anyways.
That is the word that he thought you said. A 9.5-point favorite with our friends at BetMGM. Do you like that tonight for your Cleveland Cavaliers?
Yeah, hammer it.
Let's see. I'm going through BetMGM, seeing what some of the odds to keep an eye on for the series bets.
Does Polymarket have a Donnie Freeman to Kentucky tab yet?
BetMGM does not. I checked. I'd love to know that, but they do not. Let's see where. I got to find this with. I don't want to see Knicks Hawks right now. We're talking about the Cavs. There we go. Series winner -900 with BetMGM. Are any chance of an upset for the Raptors?
No, they might win a game. I hope Quickly plays. He didn't play in the last game because of like a bad hamstring. So I hope IQ can come back and at least make it a little bit more competitive and fun, because the last game was not close. But it's not the first round I'm worried about with the Cavs. It's next round. It's the second round. What's James Harden going to do? Is he going to – I'll say the word. I'll say it, Jacob. Is he going to poop the bed? Is he going to do it again? We'll see. So
I can't do this right now. This is terrible.
Knicks minus 450 against the Hawks. I'm going through some of these odds with the other series. Minus 900 for the Cavs. The Nuggets minus 700 to beat the Timberwolves. The Lakers plus 185. The Rockets still favored minus 225. The Spurs are minus 5,000 to beat the Trailblazers. That is egregious. The Celtics minus 2,500 after absolutely dog walking the 76ers in the first game. I loved how that game unfolded.
My gosh.
Yeesh.
Poor Tyrese Maxey, man. He's just getting abused out there as the only guy that could do anything for the Sixers.
Pistons still as the 1-8 favorite, minus 200 after taking the 0-1 loss. The Thunder minus 10,000 against the Suns.
Yeah.
Oof. And that's it for the first round. So who do you got winning the whole shebang?
It's either going to be the Thunder or the Nuggets. I'm not entirely sure which team I'm picking yet, but it's going to be one of those two. I'll be shocked if it's not. Boy, I'd love for my Cavs to get swept by one of those teams in the NBA Finals. So I'll tell you that right now. That'd be awesome to get there, as long as it's not the Celtics. So we'll see. But it's definitely going to be the Thunder or the Nuggets, I'd say.
Let's see. When the games get bigger, the crowds get louder, and the excitement reaches a new level. Be part of the playoff action. When you bet with Boosted Odds, activate your Odds Boost token for any bet on the NBA playoffs, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Get ready for tip-off with BetMGM. Appreciate them for partnering with us today. So, all right, with that, let's wrap this thing up. Hopefully the news, I was kind of hoping that the news on Donnie broke while we were doing this. I was even kind of like trying to prolong this a little bit and just not there. Yes. Do you guys hate each other?
Yes.
Yeah. When Jacob was at my house on Saturday hanging out and we were being friends, I was like, God, I can't wait for this guy to leave and just go anywhere else besides my couch right now. Finally, he did. God, it was.
I was there.
It was
just
awful.
to steal stuff. I stole a bunch of stuff from his house. He didn't even notice. So
No, I noticed. I just let it happen. No, it's fine. I didn't need any of it.
I even moved your Reed Shepherd jersey, made it a little crooked. So yeah.
Oh, good stuff.
No
All right,
comment.
well, wish circumstances were better. There's still a chance that they do get better, and hopefully they turn around quickly, because the mood of the fan base is not great, Bob. They're not great right now. Fans could use some good news. They were riding the high of Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo, but I think they've kind of stalled out a little bit. We need stop sputtering. We need to take off a little bit. So hopefully things turn around with Donnie Freeman in minutes/hours, and we can celebrate and just kind of just be jokey about a tough morning with Donnie. So with that, breaking news: Tim Cook just stepped down at Apple. You have any fast takes on that?
Yeah, I'm putting my name in consideration. Apple, call me. I would like to take over.
Who would
They're in
be
the portal for a
answering-
new CEO.
Who would be answering calls on Jerron Morton at that point, though? Like
Apple, Mr. Person at Apple that's making decisions. You know how I made that Jerome Morton call? iPhone. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
You just
No Android for that guy.
CEO right here.
That was great. Go subscribe to KSR Plus, all the intel there, the twists and turns, ups and downs, all that fun stuff. We're following all of it, as frustrating as it is. We are having fun with it. So make sure you go subscribe there. Subscribe right here on the KSR YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys for being here. And just these shows are just massive, and appreciate that you guys are following along for the journey and all the chaos. So hopefully we can bring you good news sooner rather than later. But with that, for Zach, and for Jacob Paycheck Polachek, we'll see you next time.